Hi everybody, it's Rosie and Missy Jen here tonight. We're going to do a special upload on breast augmentation because we both have had our breasts augmented. And some good friends of ours, Ricky and Shay, had some questions about augmentation because they've both gone through the procedure. And in my mind, they've had a little bit of the post-surgical kind of, sometimes you get a letdown after you have surgery because maybe the expectations have run a bit ahead of themselves, and you have to let time work. But they specifically wanted to know Gen size, how gens were placed, saline, silicone, and I'll talk about mine too. And Jen will talk about some of the choices, why she specifically chose saline and why I chose silicone. Also, Shay had mentioned about wearing a strap post-surgery to push down, and Shay also had a concern about, since Shay and I both had under breast incisions here, whether the incision was placed properly. So we want to talk about that today. So let's start off with you talking about your augmentation and specifically why you chose saline and what happened in surgery that the doctor sort of called an audible with the line, as they say in football. He sort of switched up what he was going to do, much to your delight when you got it done, and also how you had it placed and everything else, and where they place it in terms of your chest structure and all that.
Well, I had saline implants. Was recommended by my doctor because then you can variate in sizes a lot more because they can overfill them to whatever size. So they can literally just during surgery kind of look at, is that symmetrical? Does that line up with your body frame and all that? So I decided to go with the saline as recommended. Chose the under the muscle placement because the doctor recommended that as well. He said that with the saline over the muscle, you can get ripples and your breasts will look unnatural. So it makes sense to place the saline under the muscle to get a more natural look. And so based upon his recommendation, I made that choice to do that. And you have three methods of incision. You have the areola incision, you have under the breast incision, and you have the armpit incision. And he recommended the armpit incision, and I'm very, very happy that I chose that because the incision is 1 inch long under both underarms, and you won't be able to see them. I wanted to have a full C cup, 650 cc, and during surgery, he decided to overfill them to 720 because of this round. Let's see this side here.
Yeah, you talked about
this
the
roundness
outline
here and
on
right.
Your frame.
He said that it looks more aesthetic to have this curvature out here. So he added another 70 cc's and made them 720, and I'm very happy with the results.
Yeah, and I think let's talk about your. Well, let's stop and then talk about mine because I had 2 augmentations in July of 2011. I made the colossal mistake that a lot of girls make. I went in and told my plastic surgeon what I wanted to have done. I'd had this dream of the high-profile silicone implants, and I went in and told the doctor, this is what I want to have. And he told me, Rosie, I don't think theirs are going to look quite right on your frame. And I said, look, I've thought about it a long time. I want to have, well, he placed the silicone for me, 600 cc silicone with the under breast crease incision here. Now, the reason you do that, Jen they can roll up a little bag for saline, and they can put it down through the armpit, even up through the belly button now, and place that in location. Then they can start filling it with very sterile saline solution, okay? So her plastic surgeon had the opportunity to sort of step back a bit, look at her and say, you know what, I'm going to overfill this to your side. But when you choose silicone, you know, you can't roll that up real small and shoot that through an armpit or through an anchor incision in the areola here. There's just no way to do that. You have to do an under breast incision and insert the silicone in there. So I came out of surgery, and what could I say to Dr. Beck? You know, they placed the implants behind the nipple, and in Dr. Beck's case, he said, Rosie, you wanted to have those high profiles, and they have a very narrow base to them, like a 4-inch base width, and he said there's too much space between your breasts, but what could I do? You told me that you wanted them. I tried to talk you out of it, and I'll see you in 2 years. If you want to change them up, there'll be no fee for me. You go ahead and do that. But we'll stop with my story, and we'll get back to Jen's. Let's talk about post-op, and you know, you had the binder, because when you place that in, as you were mentioning the first time we tried to do the upload, you mentioned that they were really high, like Shay had talked about. They look like high pectoral muscles here, and you had that same phenomena, and not for a short period of time either, right?
It takes 3 to 5 months for the implants to actually settle into place. The implants were way up here, and I could literally touch them with my chin. And the only way for them to drop is that you will get this 1.5-inch wide strap, elastic strap, that you put under your arms, around your back, and bring it up to the front. And it has a Velcro. You pull really tight and Velcro it together, and that will pull down on your implants and try to bring them down to where they need to be. If you don't do that, the implant will literally stay up here, and it will completely look unnatural. So you also get that training bra, and you do not take that training bra off for 3 months.
Yeah, it's a long period of time to go through it. And let's talk about, they were also wondering the pain factor for you when you came out of surgery.
When I came out of surgery, I was in so much pain that when they told me to sit up, I instantly got very dizzy and nauseous, where I almost passed out. And they actually then gave me an injection. They still had the
the drip in your port in your
the port in. So they gave me immediately an injection, and that took care of that. So then I walked to the hotel. Walked out, went to the hotel and passed out in the bed and slept 6 hours.
Yeah, I'm saying, but it wasn't next day. You were up feeling great.
I was in agonizing pain for 2 months, and I actually then had to go back to work. And I was working in a factory back then, and I had to use these robot arms, and you have to do this motion here like this. And it was very, very painful. It got better after 3 months. Yeah, I was on pain medication for 2 months, and then after 3 months, I was to the point where it was comfortable.
That's good. Let's talk about, because you had under muscle, and a lot of people are confused by what under and what over means. When they're talking about under muscle, you don't want to imagine that the whole implant is under some big muscle in your chest, okay? what the surgeon does is he takes something that looks like a shoehorn and he separates some of your striation, some of your muscle tissue there, and he pries up the top part of it enough to slip maybe a quarter to a third of the implant under there. Let's go with that. And you can imagine the tension that's on that. That's where the pain factor comes in, where that muscle starts to loosen. And it takes a little bit of time to loosen up. But a lot of doctors believe it gives you a more natural look. Like Jen said, you never see you don't see the rippling and things like that. The downside, of course, is you have the recovery and things. And one of the reasons when I chose the silicone, the doctor said, I'm not going to put that. It's too high of a profile to really put comfortably under the muscle. So we can put overs. You'll be pleased with the result. And, they try to place the breast, and Shay was wondering about this too. You have to place it behind the nipple. So if Shay said, well, I'm a larger gal, I used to be a bodybuilder. Well, they still have to place it behind the nipple, even if the nipple, until you girls are on a diet and everything, and we wish you well, but until you lose the weight, that'll travel back in towards your body as you lose weight. But the important thing is to get that behind the nipple area. My first surgery in July of 2011, I really I couldn't afford to take off from work. So I got the surgery done, and I was in a lot of pain and a lot of swelling up here the next day. But then the next day I had to go to work. But I don't think I could have done it if I had an under muscle job like that, because my thing was simply opening up inside here over top of the muscles with that incision under there and placing the implant underneath and then sewing it up. Now, Shay also wondered about the incision, and now it seems to ride low. But I can tell you over time, these doctors do this day in and day out, and they know exactly where that incision needs to be placed, because your breast will also drop in place a bit too. Besides, it's being held up, it's under muscle, but it will elongate a bit too. And as it elongates and drops, it's definitely going to cover that incision. And after about 5-8 months, you're hardly even going to notice that anymore, and you will be happy. So you had a good outcome. You had the saline, and I know that you would recommend that for girls. My second time through, I liked the silicone a lot. I wanted to have it again, but this time I listened to what the doctor told me to do. He said, I knew you'd be back here in 2 years. I kept your seat warm here, Rosie. You have a seat down there. He said you really needed a wider base implant, so he put the moderate profiles. Now, this is what you got too, Shay and Ricky, the moderates, because they have a 700 cc's is what I have. They have a 6.5-inch wide base, and if you have sort of a wide frame, you want the widest sort of base. Now you can see I have very defined sort of cleavage in the middle. That before I would have to push almost to the outside to achieve that. So listen to your doctor. He knows what he's talking about. He's his bread and butter, and he does this day in and day out. Anything else the girls were wondering about? Oh, what would you say about getting a re-augmentation? Would you rush off, think a year, or how long would you wait to see a result?
In your case, I would really wait at least a year, maybe even 2 years, and really work on diet, because I think, like Rosie said, as you lose weight, the breasts, like they're like out here, they will eventually move in. And as they move in, they will become fuller.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because you were wondering, you said, well, when Jen came out of surgery and Rosie came out of surgery, pop, they were there. Well, we're smaller frame sort of gals, and Shay had mentioned that you used to lift weights and all that kind of stuff, and you had a big build. But over time, hormones will continue to knock that down. The thing to do is eat healthy and exercise, and just set a long-term goal for anybody to try to get the body out, and your breasts will show more and more and more until they're standing out like Jen's and mine do when we're wearing outfits and things. I think you girls are going to be very pleased with the results, especially if you stay on a diet. So, you can always reconsult with Dr. Vasquez and things, but I happen to think he gave you what you wanted, the 600, 700 cc
Right. He did.
implants. I don't think he would not tell you the truth about sizing and things. So
The thing is, I've got low profile. I mean, these are with Celine, you cannot get no high profile. There's no such thing.
yeah, I guess because it
And
wants to push out the
still, and
size.
still look how nicely they protrude. It's because I have a small frame.
Yeah. So don't give up the ship to anybody that's had surgery done. Make sure you're satisfied, but give it plenty of time because there's a lot of changes going to occur that the doctor knows about, but you haven't asked him about. But he would definitely put you at ease, like the crease, the placement that's got to be behind the nipple. Okay, that implant has got to be centered behind the nipple. Okay, there's no other choice. And just because your breasts seem to be out to the side now and stuff, there's no reason that they're not going to pull back in if you continue to have success on your diet and all that. That would be a great thing. So I'd have it done again in a heartbeat. I don't know about Jen. I mean, it's as far as feel good factor of transitioning and male to female, it is important. And
Well,
I think,
every 10 years you have to get the implants replaced.
so you
but-
will be back.
The thing is, I already now have the cavity. The muscles are all stretched. So when I get in 7 years, the implant switched, it's going to be a lot less painful, a lot quicker recovery. So.
Yeah, that's why my second augmentation, I was back at work the next day. I mean, it was just like walking out. Bobby drove me down. He went to work at 1 o'clock, and I just lazed around the house. The next day, I was back at work because, as Jen said, the cavity was already in there. And all the doctor did was, because it had a wider base, was open up a little closer to center line and then push them in and stitch them up. Whip surgery, it was a breeze. It was, it was an easy thing to do. But I'm glad that you listened to your, I'm glad you listened to your doctor at this point and weren't stubborn like I was on it, because I think you're going to have a good outcome, both of you girls, and we're for everybody. Give it time.
I originally wanted to have the high-profile silicone, and he immediately said, "No, I don't recommend that." And I said, "Okay, I trust you're the professional. You do this, thousands of times. Better than I do." And so I'm really happy that I listened to my surgeon, because if I would have had the high-profile implants, I probably would have had this huge gap in here, and they would have stuck out like pointy or whatever.
And that was not a good look for me, and I was glad I got him switched out. So, and take a tip from Jen too and me. I took a lot of time to research the plastic surgeon, but unlike Jen, I tried to trump the plastic surgeon and say, "I know what I want," and she said, "You know what's best for me. You do it a day in, day out," and she got it right the first time. Okay, so. All right, I think that we covered a lot of ground there. We got to 18 minutes. We wanted to be very thorough, not just for you girls, but, with the case of under muscle and over here, placement over, and to just show the different outcomes, the different surgical techniques, talk about placement, incisions, and all that. But we certainly wish everybody the best. And
just to throw this in, my surgeon absolutely said not to ever get the areola incision done, because they will literally cut all the way around it and literally take the areola out, just connected with the nerve ducts, and then they will insert the implant and then reconnect and suture around, stitch up around your areola. And in a lot of cases, you will lose or can lose all or some of your sensation in your
You don't want that.
So he absolutely said no.
Yeah, it was good. So he really knew his
So
stuff.
just to throw that in there, so.
He really knew his stuff. So 2 girls, 2 different styles of implants, 2 happy girls. When all is said and done, we wish you girls the best. And anybody that's having any kind of surgery done, from Jen and Rosie, have a good evening, and thanks for watching.
Bye-bye.